There is no such thing as a foolproof plan, especially in the underworld, where there's always some fool ready to ruin any plan. Take this, for example. An inside man mapped out the perfect scheme for a solid score. $284,866 in untraceable cash walked right out of the door of a New York City racetrack at the end of the busiest betting day of the year. They look like pros, and they probably would have gotten away with it too, if only they didn't make a few stupid mistakes. The mob reporter here with the exclusive inside story of an ingenious gunpoint heist that proves a red line can usually be drawn between the best laid plan and its execution. Let me tell you about it.
And they're off in the Gotham. And mischievous Alex came away well and is going out for the early lead.
This was a good day for mischievous Alex, a 3-year-old colt who won the Gotham Stakes thoroughbred horse race at New York's Aqueduct Racetrack. The Gotham Stakes is the track's busiest, most lucrative betting day, popular as a prep race for the Kentucky Derby. The track took in $536,567 in betting money that evening, and 3 bandits made off with more than half of it. Let's break it down. First, meet the crew. Lafayette Morrison, known as Laff. He's the inside man, a trusted security guard at the racetrack, and the brain who conjured a masterful plan to rob his bosses blind. Lamel Miller, known as Mel, Morrison's childhood friend. He's the muscle and main gunman. And finally, Khaleel Williams, known as Kaw, the driver, backup gunman, and gofer. Morrison knew everything about the place and how money was moved around the track, and he laid it all out for Miller. It went like this. Each night, 2 employees accompanied by a security guard walk around the track, emptying cash from inside self-serve betting machines, placing the bundles from each into a wheeled money bag. When they're done, they move it to the vault, where an armed guard watches it. There's only one way to get to the vault. The collectors go into a restricted area and cross a catwalk to a private elevator that only goes to the vault in the basement. Morrison knew the catwalk was the perfect place for a stick-em-up, a choke point away from the public and the armed guard at the vault, and it was where the money bag would be the fullest. Oh, and there's no security cameras there. To pull it off, they needed a third man. Miller recruited Williams. The big race day was March 7, 2020. The day before, Williams took care of step 1. He pulled up in his silver Dodge outside a Metro PCS, a phone dealer in Queens. Here we see him arrive. Inside, he picked out 2 burner phones and an earpiece, registering them in a fake name and the address of a Chinese restaurant. Here's the receipt. Then Williams picked up a getaway car, an old black Mercedes. On the day of the big race, Morrison started his shift at the track at 4 p.m. At 5:42, the starting bell rang for the final and biggest race of the day. That signaled the end of placing bets on the Gotham Stakes. Mischievous Alex crossed the finish line a whisker over a minute and a half later. At 8:54 p.m., Miller and Williams pulled into the racetrack's rear parking lot in their Mercedes. Williams was at the wheel. A minute later, Morrison came down the escalator into the main lobby of the racetrack and stepped outside. He walked to the side of the building towards where their Mercedes was parked. There, Miller and Morrison talked on their burner phones, testing Morrison's earpiece before Morrison returned to work inside. Inside the car, Miller pulled out a handgun and gave a second gun to Williams as they waited. At 9:15 p.m., Morrison called Miller on their burner phones. It was time to move. Morrison didn't hang up, though, leaving an open line for Miller to hear him as he escorts 2 collectors on the last money run of the night. You see, Morrison has an earpiece in his left ear. Meanwhile, in the parking lot, Miller got out of the car and told Williams to count to 60 before following him inside. At 9:16 p.m., Miller entered the track at a side entrance. Surveillance cameras captured him walking casually, talking on the phone. He's wearing a black hat, camo pants, and a black hoodie with uneven white drawstrings. Miller couldn't resist looking up at the camera. Yep, it's there, buddy. Williams followed seconds later, but managed to keep his head down. Upstairs at 9:17 p.m., the first machine on the money run was emptied by the track staff. It was one of the lightest loads, just $1,105. As the money run continued from dozens and dozens of machines, Miller and Williams lifted a seat cushion where Morrison had hid a key. They needed that to get into the restricted area. They hid in a storage area where Miller gave Williams a medical mask to cover his face. At 10:01 p.m., the last machine on the collection route was emptied. It was a heavy one, $15,930. The two collectors with Morrison then took the money cart upstairs and wheeled it down the catwalk towards the elevator. When Miller and Williams heard them coming, they moved into a stairwell nearby and then stepped out to block their path as the track workers approached. "Freeze," Miller said. "Don't move." The collectors stopped and put their hands in the air. Now, I don't have video of the stick-up because there isn't any. That's an advantage of having an inside man on a heist. Williams took the track workers' phones, including Morrison's, and Morrison's security walkie-talkie, and put them all in a bag. Miller told the workers to turn around and walk back across the catwalk. One clerk said he feared he would be shot in the back. Instead, they were pushed inside a storage closet and told to count to 1,000 before coming out. Williams wrapped the money cart in a black bag and gave it to Miller. So far, the heist went like clockwork, but the job wasn't over. No longer able to talk to Morrison, the two bandits took a wrong turn in the stairwell and emerged in the middle of this large public area, filled with patrons and cashiers. They were stunned, looking for a way out, before finding a door that led to where they had first entered. At 10:06 p.m., here they are, coming out masked, Miller with the money bag, and Williams with the bag with the victim's phones. Williams dumped the bag of phones in a trash can on the way out to the car. They dumped the Mercedes, split up, and met back up at Miller's hotel room. Miller's girlfriend was there. They opened the bag and dumped the bricks of money onto the bed. They looked like this. There were 67 money bricks in all. On the bed, they counted it 5 times. It took hours. $284,866. Miller gave Williams $100,000 of it, kept $100,000 for himself, and put $84,000 in a bag for Morrison. Miller then gave his girlfriend a large messy pile of $1 bills. Williams cradled his stash of cash like a baby. They felt on top of the world. Do you think that feeling lasted? While Miller and Williams were counting their loot, Morrison was back at the track pretending to be a victim. All 3 track workers were taken to a police station for interviews by the Joint Robbery Task Force. Investigators thought it was an inside job from the start. Morrison was interviewed 3 times. He was a capable liar. But then Morrison realized their big mistake. Remember those phones Williams dumped in the trash? Williams was supposed to just dump the workers' personal phones and keep Morrison's burner phone from ever being found. That's the phone that was connected to Miller's burner all through the robbery. When the victims reclaimed their phones, the burner phone remained. Cops pounced on it. They examined call logs and traced its movements based on which cell tower it had been pinging off. They found the burner moved in tandem with Morrison's personal phone, from around Morrison's house to the racetrack. Now this crew made another big mistake. The night before the robbery, when the 3 bandits were finalizing their plan, Miller accidentally called Morrison's burner phone from his personal phone. It wasn't long before Miller's mugshot from a past arrest was compared to security footage of the man on the phone walking into the track and disappearing until he marched back out with a large bag. Cops quickly learned how close Miller and Morrison were. In fact, they had been arrested together as teenagers for a different robbery. Tracing calls from the second burner phone found Miller used his secret burner the day before the heist to call his ex-wife, to call his girlfriend, and to call his mother. Now, while police were digging that up, Miller was spending his loot. He texted a jeweler asking to see what Breitling watches he was selling. The jeweler sent him photos. Miller chose the iced-out one. He bought himself a BMW and his girlfriend an Acura and an engagement ring. Lucky girl. Police found one more nail for his coffin. On Miller's phone was a video selfie. Shockingly, he's wearing the same hat and the same hoodie he wore to the heist, right down to the uneven white drawstrings. Miller and Morrison were both arrested on June 15, 2020. That's 14 weeks after their genius heist plan unraveled. The only unanswered question for the cops was, who was the third man? Williams, despite being the one who doomed them all by dumping the burner in the trash, was still unidentified. Williams gave Morrison and Miller $40,000, almost half his share of the loot, to keep his name out of it, and the pair didn't rat him out. Williams was starting to think he got away clean, the last man standing after a year. But investigators tracked the burner phones to the Metro PCS store, and video from New York's broad public surveillance system picked up Williams parking his Dodge when he went to buy them. On March 30, 2021, Williams was arrested too. Now, Williams eventually agreed to plead guilty to robbery and brandishing a firearm, and to testify against the others to get a break. In October 2022, Morrison and Miller faced a 5-day trial. Oh, it didn't take the Brooklyn jury long. They reached a verdict after lunch. Both were found guilty on October 21, 2022. Their convictions mean they face a minimum of 7 years in prison and a maximum of life. The pair have not yet been sentenced. Shortly before Christmas, Williams was. Taking his cooperation into account, Williams was sentenced to time served and released with a hefty restitution order for the full amount of the Racetrack heist. So it turns out they weren't criminal masterminds after all. They sure looked like pros, but in the end didn't have the parts. Please tap the thanks button or join me on Patreon to help me out. And please like, comment, and subscribe. That helps too. Thanks for watching.